Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Hi, and welcome to be here in this social environment here of Ambiente Social del año 2024. We have here, I have the pleasure to be the master of ceremony of this conversation. My name is Eleanor. Now I'm going to introduce my invited guest. Delcy Morelos was born in Tierralta, Colombia in 1967. Her practice includes painting, installation, and sculpture. In the last decade, the artist has focused on producing large format installations in situ using earth, clay, natural fibers, and other organic materials. Recently, she has had individual presentations of her work at Galeria Santa Fe, Bogotá, 2019, Southern Alberta Art Gallery, Lethbridge, Canada, 2019, and Museum of Modern Art of Buenos Aires, and others. She lives in Bogotá. And Gaby Collins-Fernandez writes, paints, and lives in the city of New York. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Gaby.
Hola a todos.
Hi, everyone.
Me siento muy emocionada y alegre de
I
estar
am
aquí con
very
ustedes.
excited and happy to be here with
Con Delcy.
everyone, especially with
Tiene a su
Delcy.
disposición ahora
She
el
has
museo
this
El
exhibition
Abrazo,
here
que es
in Dia
realmente
Chelsea, El Abrazo.
impresionante.
It is
Y
really
espero que todo el
amazing.
mundo
And
haya visto ya
I hope that
la
everyone
exhibición
has already
o
seen this
va a ir a
exhibition
verla,
or
porque la
is
verdad es
planning to go
que
to
me
do
ha
so,
cambiado mucho. A mí también
because
me ha
it
condicionado
really has
definitivamente.
changed. It has
Delcy,
had
para
a great
empezar,
impact on myself as
quería
well.
saber si,
To start with,
bueno,
Delcy, I
deberíamos
wanted to
empezar
know, y
con
creo que maybe we
una
should
pequeña
start,
descripción como emocional,
if you can give me
sensorial,
an
de las dos
emotional
piezas en
description of
vivo, ¿sí?
yourself
Hemos hablado
about the
hace
two
mucho
pieces that you have in
sobre
Dia
la
Chelsea.
importancia de la
You have
experiencia
spoken a lot
y
about
me
the
parece que
importance
especialmente
in
para
the
una mujer
experience, and I
mestiza
think, and I think
bilingüe,
especially
así como
for a
que a lo
bilingual
mejor no
audience, like I
necesariamente
like
a
to call it,
todas,
but
sería muy
perhaps they're
importante
not as familiarized
empezar
with
por
your work.
este tipo de
Maybe it's
descripción
important to start with that type of
de las
description
obras en tus palabras,
about your work with your
Bueno,
words. Well,
primero quiero darle las gracias
first of all, I
a
want to say
ustedes por
thank you
invitarme a
to
esta
all of
charla.
you to have
Estoy muy
invited me here
contenta
to this
y
chat.
también
I
quiero
am very
agradecer a las
happy,
personas que
and
están
I also
conectadas
want
ahora
to
mismo.
say thank you to all the people
Bueno,
that is connected right
desde
now.
el abrazo y cielo terrenal
El abrazo y cierro
son tres
terrenal
pequeñas obras que muestran la
are
tierra
two
de dos
pieces of
maneras
work
muy
that
diferentes.
shows
La
the
tierra
soil
es
in two
un
very different
elemento
ways.
que se
Earth
puede
is
usar
an
de
element
muchísimas maneras.
that you
Para
can be
nosotros
used in many,
indígenas
many
es
ways.
la
In
diosa,
indigenous
es
towns, it is
es
God,
lo que nos
it's
alimenta
Mother, it's
y es
what
lo
feed
que nos
us,
constituye.
it's
Y
what
como
make us.
occidentales que vivimos en las ciudades,
And
esto es
as
algo que
people that live in the
desconocemos.
cities, this is
Entonces,
something that we are
yo
not
como
aware of.
artista que
And
crecí
I, as an artist
viviendo esta relación
that grew
profunda
up
con la tierra,
knowing this close
me siento
relationship with
como
Earth, I
una
feel
intérprete
like an
que
interpreter
lleva
and
la
someone
tierra
that
a
is
lugares
showing the earth, the
posibles,
soil,
en los lugares
in a
posibles
place that
son
the
los
places
lugares
that
sagrados en los que
you can
nosotros nos
exhibit this
perdemos,
is like a
¿sí?
sacred
Entonces
place in
llevar
this time
a
in
la tierra
culture.
a estos espacios
For
que
me to bring
se
earth to these
realizan,
places
llevar a la
that are
tierra
considered
es
sacred,
como mostrar su
to bring earth
dimensión
there is like to
sagrada,
show
¿sí?
sacred
Que hemos
dimensions,
olvidado. Entonces, la
sacred
primera
dimension that has
exhibición
been
que
forgotten.
tuvimos
The
en
first
la sala
exhibition that we had in the
del
room
cielo terrenal habló
541,
de ese
Cielo
espacio
Terrenal,
de
I speak
tierra
about that
al que
space that is
volvemos
earth,
cuando morimos. La
that space
tierra
that we
nos
go back to when
transforma
we
en
die.
alimento.
The
Para
soil
mí,
transforms
la
us
muerte
into
alimenta la
food.
vida y la vida
For me,
alimenta la
death
muerte.
feeds life
Cuando nos
and
morimos,
life
nuestros
feeds
cuerpos
death.
llegan
When
a la
we
tierra
die, our body
que se
goes
vuelve
into the earth, and it becomes the nutrient to the plants
nutrientes para
and the
animales y
nutrient
personas.
for animals, insects
Eso nos hace vivir a
that
nivel
make us
material,
live in a
a nivel físico,
material
a
level,
través de sus
in a physical level through
nosotros.
these animals
Para mí
that
no
feed
existe
through us.
la muerte
For me,
como
there is
muerte,
no death
sino
as an
como
end,
una transformación.
but as a transformation.
En el abrazo,
In El Abrazo,
la obra es tan grande,
this work is
pero
so big,
su tamaño es para que tú te
but
sientas
its
abrazado por la
size
vida, por la
is for
tierra,
you to feel hugged,
estamos aquí en la
contained by
tierra,
earth,
nos movemos
because we're here
sobre
on
la
top of
tierra,
the earth and we move
damos
on
vueltas,
earth,
también
but we don't
respiramos.
realize
Ella todo el
we
tiempo, o
feed
sea, las plantas se
of the
alimentan
earth
de
all the
ella,
time.
seres
The plants
carnívoros, los animales se
feeds from the
alimentan de las
earth.
plantas y de
If you
nosotros
are a
en esta
carnivore, the
dimensión.
animals feed from
La
the
tierra
plants
se
and
está
you feed from
alimentando,
the
no
animals.
de
It's
una
the earth
manera
that's
directa,
feeding
por
you,
eso no lo vemos.
not in a
Entonces, para mí es
direct way.
importante hacer
That's why we don't see it.
consciente
And that's why I think it's
de esa
important to be conscious
magnificencia que te está
of
alimentando y
this
que aquí en el abrazo
magnificence that
te
is
está
feeding
abrazando.
us. And here in
Todo
El
todo
Abrazo, it is
esa
hugging
masa de
you. This
materia
whole
está allí
size, this
para
whole
abrazar al
mass of
espectador.
material, it's there to hug the spectator.
Delcy, voy a contar una pequeña historia
Delcy, I'm
de
going to
la
tell a
conversación
small
anterior.
story about our
Estábamos
conversation
hablando
last time.
de
We
manera
were
como muy
talking
casual de
in a
la
very casual
diferencia
way
entre
about the
hablar en español
differences
y hablar en
in
inglés.
talking in
Que el
English and
inglés es muy
Spanish, that
racional, es un
English
poco
is
más
very
cercano.
rational, like
Y de
close.
otra parte, el español
And
cuando
on the other hand,
hablamos
Spanish,
no solo
when
cambia
you
la
speak it,
manera y el
it
sonido
not
de las
only
palabras,
change
sino también
the
cambia el
sound
cuerpo,
of
porque
the
además
words,
de
but it
español,
also
todos los
opens your
vocablos
body,
vienen
because
de
when
la
you speak
boca,
in
¿no?
Spanish,
Es
all those
el
vowels also
hablar
open
en
your mouth.
castellano
Speaking
cambia
this language
el cuerpo, cambia el
changes your
movimiento del
body,
cuerpo.
changes the
Y estoy
material of
contando
your
esta
body.
historia
And
pequeña
I'm
porque mi
mentioning this small
experiencia
story because in my
a través de
experience,
estas dos obras
through
era
these
uno
two
como
works, it has
sentir
been
abrir y
like
cerrar.
my body has been
Por
opening and
ejemplo, cuando
closing. For
entré
example,
el
when
encierro
I
terrenal,
enter
es
in
un
El
cuarto muy
Cierro
oscuro
Terrenal,
y
is a
una de las
very
cosas
dark
primeras
room.
que ocurre
And one
es
of the
el
first
olor
things that
y
happen
perfume de la
is
tierra
the
que
smell, the
pasa
aroma
por los
of the earth
cuartos.
that goes in between the two rooms.
Entonces, en este cuarto grande
And
y
then in that
oscuro,
big
con el
room,
arte,
dark
la
room
cerámica,
with
la
the art,
tierra muy
ceramic,
abajo,
the
muy bajo,
soil
un plano
very
muy
low,
bajo,
in a very low
yo
plane.
llegué también a como las 2 de la tarde, o sea
I got
que
there
las
at
luces
around 2
directas
p.m., so
no
there was not
llegaban a
direct
mi
light,
casa
but
y casi
diffuse light.
anochece. O sea que
And
yo cuando
I
entré
couldn't
al
really
fondo
see
del
when I
cuarto
went.
estaba
At the
oscuro.
end of the
Vamos, no
piece,
ves
I
siquiera
felt at the
las
same
ventanas
time
abiertas,
blind
sino
and at the
abiertas,
same time
oliendo,
opened, smelling,
respirando este aire que
breathing,
se sentía más
breathing that
húmedo,
air that
más
felt
pulcroso.
more humid,
Y los elementos visuales de
and
esa
the
obra
visual elements of
como
this
que
work,
se hicieron, los tuve que esperar, no estaba
it's like something that I
tratando de
had to wait
penetrar lo
for it.
visual
I wasn't
y
trying
ver
to
si me
absorb
sentí
everything
preparada para el
visually, but at the
espacio
same time, I
del
felt
arte.
that the space
Era como
absorbed
casi una
me and the
preparación
art.
para
It was
entonces
almost like
entrar
a
en el
preparation
cuarto del
to go
abrazo,
into the room of
donde
El
el
Abrazo,
perfume de la
where
tierra es
that
mucho más intenso,
scent
como
of the earth was
está
more
como
intense.
dentro de la tierra misma
It was like
y
embedded
donde
in
el
the
heno
soil itself,
se siente como
and
los dedos
the hay
secos que
feels
tocas,
like
también puedes tocar con
fingers,
tus
like dry
manos.
fingers that you're
Y
able to touch
entrar
with
en
your
esta
hands.
caja que has
And to
hecho
be
en
able
el
to
abrazo
enter
es
in this
realmente como un
space that
abrazo.
you make in
Y
the El
está
Abrazo
como
is
un
like a hug.
espacio triangular que entra dentro
There
de
is
la
like
obra
a triangular
monumental.
space
Y
when
cuando
you
uno
go into
entra
this
ahí adentro, se
monumental
siente como
work of art,
pasivo, ¿no? O sea,
and
que
you
sientes
feel like
como
you're
que la tierra te
almost
está
silent.
totalmente
You feel like
encerrando,
the
puedes ver
soil
para arriba
is
y hacia abajo,
enclosing you. You
pero
can
que te
look up,
cambia
you
el
can look
sentido
down, but it changes your
del oído.
sense of
Y este
hearing.
sentido, esta
And
experiencia para mí
this experience for me
fue muy emocionante también
was
porque me
very
enseñó cómo
exciting
tu obra
because it
usa
taught me
los
how
elementos
your
visuales
art uses
para
the
como
visual elements
abrir un entendimiento
to
físico,
open a
sensorial,
physical understanding,
y también como que se hace una pregunta
sensitive
concreta
element, and it makes like a concrete metaphor material, and it goes inside your body. I'm sorry for making this description really long, but I think it is something important to let people see the meaning of the magic of your work. I also wanted to ask you more about this transformative element of the earth, and what is the best way that you transform it, how you use it, how you manage it, this sense of transformation using geometry and shape.
Sí, también, además de la geometría y la
Yes, aside
también
from
se usa
geometry and
la
shape, I'm also using light
como elementos
as
importantes
one of the
y
important
el
elements,
gustativo. Para
and
mí el
also the
olfato es
olfactory
uno
sense.
de los
Um,
sentidos que menos le
the
damos
sense of smell is
importancia
one of the senses that we
en
give
nuestros
little
orígenes
importance,
y que
but
en
in our
muchos animales
origins
eso
and many
no es tan
animals, for
importante
them,
para la
it's very
sobrevivencia.
important
Por
for
eso cuando
survival.
el cerebro
With the smells, different parts of the brain
hace
get
recordar, la
activated
memoria se
that
activa
help
y
you
si
remember.
vemos
The
que
memory
el
gets
espectador
activated.
pierde
And what I
los
want is for the
momentos
viewer
y que
to
estuvo
remember the
en la
moments
naturaleza y que
where
se
he or she
sienta
was in
muy allí,
nature
que
and
no
it
sabía
felt
por qué se
really good
sentía
there,
tan
that you didn't even
tranquilo,
know
pero
why you felt
se
so
sentía
good,
tranquilo,
that
alegre
you
y
felt
sobre todo porque
at
estuvimos
peace,
en la
happy,
naturaleza cuando
and
éramos
mostly
niños
because
y
we were mostly
realmente
in
nos
nature when we
dedicamos
were
a
children.
trabajar,
As
a
adults, we dedicate our
sobrevivencia en la
lives to
ciudad
work, to
y
survive in the
pero cuando
cities.
éramos niños
But
nuestros
when we
padres
were children,
nos llevaban
our
al
parents will
campo
take us
a disfrutar la
um,
tierra, entonces llegan esos
to the farmland to
momentos
enjoy
de
the
nuestra
land.
niñez,
Those
esos
are moments of
dinosaurios.
our childhood, and
También me
that's very
interesa
interesting
que
to me. I'm
se
also
encuentre
interested
una
that
tranquilidad.
the sense of
Entonces, cuando tú
tranquility gets activated
tienes mucha
in
luz,
yourself. When you have a lot of
el
light,
sentido de la vista
the
activado,
sense
entonces la
of
vista se
sight
expande un
gets
poco y
activated. And
aprovecha
what I
el
want is for the
exterior
sense of
parte.
sight to
Cuando
go
entras
down a bit,
al
and
cielo
then your
terrenal,
olfactory sense to
hay
come up.
poca luz
And when you go in
y
there,
a medida en que tus
there is
sentidos
very
van
little light.
desarrollando
And as your eyes get used to
aparecen
the
esas
darkness,
figuras que están puestas
these
en esa
shapes
oscuridad en el
starts to
cielo
come up
de
that
los
are
cielos.
placed in this, that are coming up
Me gustaría
from
que
the
fuera
void.
como un sueño y eso
And
te
I want it
va
to
a
seem
llevar
like
como
a
a un
dream.
sueño, como
And
a
that's
esa
gonna bring
tranquilidad.
you to
Lo
a
que
dream,
quiero
to a
saber
state of
de esas esculturas
peace.
tan grandes
And
es
what I want to do with
activar
this
partes
type of work is to
del espectador
activate
que
parts of the viewer
normalmente no son
that
activados
normally are not
en las
activated
exposiciones y como eso
in
les ayudaría
exhibitions or in their
como
daily
que
life.
se
I
tranquilicen y
want that
puedan
they
disfrutar
are at peace and
de la
they can
experiencia.
enjoy the experience.
Es muy interesante oírte hablar
It is
de
very
una forma
interesting
también,
to hear you
creo
speak in this
que
way
en
because
los Estados
I
Unidos
think in the
también
United
el
States as well,
minimalismo se
the
considera
minimalism
un
is
estilo muy
considered a
racional, ¿no? O sea,
very
hay
rational
muchas cosas
style, very concrete,
mientras que
very
has
rational,
hablado ahora de
while
ese, o sea, de
now you're
agarrar
speaking about
tu arte
this or
como un
going this
sueño, ¿no? Como de
duality
manera
in
muy
like a
racional,
dream, in a way
o
less
sea,
rational,
artístico, pero que también
more, I
está
don't know,
muy en
intuitive.
contra y
And I've been
las
thinking a lot
tradiciones
about
del
your work
neorealismo
and
y del
their
neoconcretismo
traditions about
latinoamericano y de como hay
neo-concretism
como una alianza,
Latin American,
o sea,
and there is
italiana,
like
¿no?
a
Dentro del
connection, utopian
concretismo y
connection
de las
inside
formas
of the
concretas
forms,
geométricas. Y
of these
quisiera
concrete
preguntarte
forms,
sobre
geometric
estos
forms.
aspectos un
And
poco
I wanted to
surrealistas y
ask you
también
about these
italianos y
subreal
como
aspects
ideales
and
muy
utopial
lindos, muy bellos
that
de la
are
política, de la
beautiful, that
política.
are wonderful, that also form part of
Sí,
politics.
mucha gente puede pensar
Yes,
que yo vengo
a lot of
del
people
minimalismo norteamericano y
thinks
sí,
that
soy
I am
minimalista
from, I
y
come
soy muy
from the
abstracta,
art
pero vengo
minimalistic
del sur
American.
del
Yes, I
sur de la
am, but I come
dimensión
from the
de
South,
las
which
cosas,
is
un poco
another
surrealista
dimension.
todo.
It is a
Vengo
bit
del Caribe,
surreal.
donde es mucho color y
I come
alegría,
from
pero no soy
Caribbean where
minimalista. Yo
there is a lot of
considero
color,
que soy una
but at the same
antítesis
time, I think I
de
am an
un
anomaly
artista
within being a Caribbean artist because I've always felt strange, and the way that I do my work is different than normally will get done in this part of the world. I also feel strange within minimalism as established in Latin America because I am a woman, I'm Caribbean, I speak Spanish, which is another tongue, and that makes me different of how I perceive and I understand things. I don't speak English very well. I don't read English very well. So all those texts written about minimalisms are in English and I have not been able to read them, but I can read the images, I can feel them, yes, without the need of reading the text about them. So I go to an exhibition and I feel it. For me, how I perceive art and how I have learned from it, it has been from how I feel it, no brain understanding. It has been from my body, from my sense, from my heart, from my soul. That's how I have understood art. And I think it is the language that is spoken mostly in the South, in Latin American, the language of the emotion, the senses, the body. And that's why I want for the viewer, when they come to see one of my pieces, they see what they feel in their body. Delcy, at this moment, I think it will be very interesting to hear a little bit more about the process of getting set up for this exhibition. Can you tell me how it happened? What were you thinking? How did they come about? And also is a question a little bit long because it is important to say that it's something relatively new. Your work with the soil, with earth, is something that has happened in the last decade, 7, 8 years, more or less, more, 11 years, 12 years, I'm sorry. And I am very interested in hearing from you about how it was it that you started to work with soil, with the earth, and how these pieces of monumental work that you have had in Biennale de Venecia last summer, and how the trajectory of this work with earth has, what trajectory has it had in the other places where you've had these exhibitions? Well, I started to work with earth, with soil, because I noticed that what makes that your blood is red is iron. It's the iron that you have in your blood. And what makes that the earth is red is the iron that the earth has. So the cow gets fed from grass, and that grass is fed from the iron from the earth, or the spinach that we eat, vegetarians eat, that has iron because it is fed from the iron that it has the earth. That's when I started to notice this deep relationship that we have between ourselves and the earth. Like from a habitant of the jungle or in Latin countries or smaller towns, they know that we have a deep connection with earth, that is our mother, and that we are earth. So for me, there is a void there in feelings from the human beings that live in the city and the earth. I thought it was super important to start speaking about it because I'm also learning about it as I'm working with it. I've been understanding what the earth is, what the soil is. It is something that has been forgotten, and that's why I started working with soil. I used to work about in the topic of violence, racism, and I was able to notice that the same way that we mistreat women, that we kill each other, it is from that same place that we are mistreating our earth. It is not a matter of ignorance that we're not seeing this relationship, this deep relationship that we have with the earth and with ourselves. When I hurt someone else, I'm hurting myself. When a man hurts a woman, he's hurting himself. When he hurts the earth, he's also hurting himself.
Una cosa, pero entonces nos puede decir entonces cuáles
And
otras
so
obras
then
que
you
han sido
can you tell us what
contemporáneas
are other
unas obras un
works that you
poquito
have
más
that we have
accesibles
included in a
de estas
slideshow?
obras
Can you
podrías hablar un
tell us
poquito
a
de
little
estas
bit about
obras y
them,
entonces
about this
cómo
work,
entró la idea de
about these
estas obras
pieces, and how was it the idea came about these
cuál es el
pieces?
proceso tuyo
And what was your
en tener la
process
idea entonces
when you had
hacer
the
la obra
idea and
nos
then
puedes
to
explicar un
do the
poquito más
work?
el proceso tuyo
If
artístico.
you can explain to us a little bit more your artistic process.
esa parte porque me emociona
Yes,
mucho hablar
I
de eso.
didn't answer that part yet because I get really emotional about it. Earth is fantastic.
Yo empiezo
So then
este
I
proyecto para
start
Dia
working in this
cuando
project
ellos
for
hace
Dia
5 o 6 años
when
visitaron
they, like about
mi
5 or 6 years
estudio y
ago,
para
visited
mí
my studio.
Dia
And
fue,
for me,
era tan maravilloso porque esos
my
artistas
workshop,
que me
for
habían
them to go to
influido
my
mucho,
workshop was
que yo había visto en
amazing
libros,
because those artists
formaban parte
that
de su
touched me a lot,
colección
that I had
porque
seen
ellos habían
in books, were part of their
participado en
collection,
esos
were
proyectos
people
tan
that they
grandes.
had supported for their
Entonces,
big
para
projects.
mí estar en
So
Dia,
for me to
estar en
be
Dia
in
de
Dia
Arte, sí,
is like to be
pero físicamente
in the
y
history of art,
sí,
physically and in
por lo que
reality,
ellos han hecho.
because of what
Entonces
they have
ellos
done.
llegan a mi
So
estudio,
they come to my studio,
escuchan lo que yo tenía
they
que decir,
listen
muchas
to what I
cosas,
had to
muchas sobre el
say,
arte, la
all of these
tierra, lo
things that I
que mi
said about the
maestro
art, the
doctor que se
jungle.
llama Isaías Román, que es un
My master,
indígena
Isaias Roman,
de
which
la
is an
Amazonía
indigenous
colombiana,
man from the
él es un
Colombian
doctor en medicina
Amazonian
absurda y
jungle.
ellos empiezan
And
a
I
decir
say
que
things
esto es colonialismo porque
absurd things like that, and
antes
they
yo
start to
hablaba
become
a
interested
los
about it.
curadores
Because
y
before I
en
used to talk to
Colombia y ellos no
curators in
entendían
Colombia, and they
obviamente
wouldn't
no
they didn't
decían qué,
understand me, or they didn't
porque
pay
por
much
muchos
attention
motivos,
to me
porque soy
for many
de
reasons.
un pequeño pueblo del
Because
Caribe,
I'm
no
from a
soy de la
small town,
capital, soy
Caribbean. I'm not
todo
from the
eso
capital, because I'm a
va
woman.
sumando para que se
And
genere
all
ese
of
tipo
that
de
starts
conflicto.
to
Para
add
mí,
up,
cuando
so they
empiezo a
won't
escuchar
listen.
y
So
estar
when Dia
interesada en lo
started
que
to
yo
listen
digo,
to
lo que
me
hago,
and be
fue
interested in
algo
what I
como un punto de
say and what
inflexión
I
en mi
do,
vida
it
y
was
digamos que
like a
para mí
pivot
mis
time in my
vidas
life,
están unidas,
because
son lo
my
mismo,
life and my
lo que
career
a mí me
are
interesa
interconnected. They are the
aprender a
same.
través del arte y aprender a vivir
For me,
a
is to
través de él.
learn through the
Somos
art
una
and to
cosa,
live through the art.
somos uno. Entonces
We
que
are one.
Día me empiece a escuchar y me
So Dia starts
empiece
to hear me
a pedir un proyecto para mi
and
pueblo,
asked me for a
sorprendentemente
project. And when they did,
nunca
that
me
was
habían escuchado,
surprising
no era
because
importante lo que yo
I had
decía,
never been heard. It was
estaban
not
solo
important what I had to say.
viendo.
That was my
Entonces para
experience.
mí fue
So for
algo
me,
maravilloso
that was
ese
so
día y
amazing to
además
have been
desde
given that
desde la
opportunity.
carencia, porque para mí hacer este tipo
And
de
also
cosas
from the
muy
lack,
grandes
because for
para
me
mí también
to
fue
do
algo que
these
yo
um,
escogí, es
big
algo que
pieces of
quiero
art
hacer de
are
ese tamaño,
what I like
porque
to do. It's not
como
something
muchos
that I
escuchan,
chose,
sí
but
tenía que
because
ser
I
una
hadn't
cosa
been
tan
heard, if I
grande
had
para
to
que
do those
fuera
things, those
escuchada
big
y vista,
projects to
¿sí?
be heard and seen.
Entonces, para a mí hacer esas
So
cosas
then for
tan
me to be
grandes
able to make these
necesitaba
big
dinero y las
pieces of work,
instituciones
I
no me
needed
daban
money, and
dinero
the
para hacer
institutions
estas obras tan
wouldn't
grandes.
give
A
me
mí
the
me
money.
tocaba
Big
prestar
pieces of art like
amigos,
this, I needed to
entonces
lend from
también me ha
friends.
servido que soy mujer
It has also
latinoamericana
helped me that
y
I
eso
am
para
Latin
mí es
American woman, and
mucho
we are
porque
used to make
dicen
a
que con
lot
poco
with
hacemos
little.
allá milagros,
We do a lot with
que
little.
ganar un
We
sueldo
make
mínimo en
miracles.
Colombia mantiene a
There,
una
women
familia y
that
hace mil cosas
makes
con tan poco
earns
dinero.
minimal
Es
wage, supports
indescriptible.
the whole family.
Entonces
I'm
para
like
mí ha
that type of
sido
woman.
difícil
For me, it has been
comprender la ciencia,
difficult and
pero cuando
painful to
llego a
do
día yo
pieces
digo,
like
voy a
this.
hacer
But
lo que
when
yo
I go
quiera,
there
como
and they tell
quiera,
me, you can do
sin
what you want,
necesidad
however you want,
quiero que
without
este tipo de
even
obras no
saying, I
es
want you to make
aceptación
this
total,
type
entonces
of
no lo
piece.
puedo creer
No,
que esto
complete
exista,
freedom. And
esta
thought
institución
to myself, I
es
can't believe
maravillosa de
something like
verdad
this
y le
exists. This
agradezco que
foundation
me
is
hayan invitado.
amazing, really.
Y
And I
el
am
proceso
utterly
para yo
happy to have
llegar a
been
hacer estas
invited.
piezas
And the process for me to be able
a
to do these
Perencia
pieces
es muy
that
largo,
I can do now
aumentando
has
de
been
tamaño,
very long.
entendiendo la tierra, entendiendo el sistema constructivo, hablando con
So
ingenieros,
talking
que
to
para ellos es
engineers,
difícil porque estamos
And it's
pero
been very
como
difficult
la ley de
because
gravedad,
we are
a mí me parece que
almost
también
fighting
es a
against
través de este
gravity.
patriarcado que
It's
quiere de
almost
que nos
like
dejemos abajo,
the
abajo siempre. Entonces
fatherhood,
prefiero
he wants women
primero
to
subir
just
la
be
tierra, subir
under
nuestro
our feet.
camino, elevarlo. Y
And I
ese
also
campo
wanted
fue
to
difícil,
bring
pero
up
bueno,
femininity,
ella
even
tuvo
though
que
it's
poner
really
ese ejemplo, una
difficult.
mujer, sí, que estuvo ahí haciendo ese
There
tejido
was
de que
a
nosotros
female
trabajamos
engineer
hoy un tejido
that was
de
working
fuerzas, ¿sí?
in knitting,
Mira, es más maravilloso por dentro
and
que
it's
por
almost
fuera.
like putting
O sea,
all
ellos allá
the
adentro
knitting
hacen
of
una
the
cosa
strength and the
de
forces
tejido de
together.
madera, de
Is
tierra,
a
para
knitting
poder elevar
that
la
has
tierra,
the hay and
esperar la
also
siguiente
wood
tierra que hay. Sí.
that brings
Entonces es
together all
una
this
labor de ingeniería,
soil
Dios
that
mío,
has come together.
maravillosa.
It
Ese
is
tejido allá
a
adentro.
beautiful
Ujú.
knitting,
Y
um,
todo eso para abrazar el espectador.
and all of
Y
this so that
empecé
the
trabajando con esto
audience
de
would feel
elevar
hugged.
a la tierra como pintura pegada a la tierra, como
There was also
al
paint
piso
that
como
was
flor y a
attached
la pared
to
como
the
que
floor
elevaron
and
ese cielo
also to the
terrenal.
walls
Pero me
in the
llevaron a
Sierra
un
Terrenal.
espacio en Gotemburgo que
There was a
el piso
space
es muy
in
desigual y iba
Gothenburgo
a poder hacer
where the
el
space was not
colorista
very
que es
even, and I
todo
wasn't
blanco.
going to be able to do
Entonces yo
this and
dije,
it's
la
very
única
even
forma
as
que
you're
voy a
seeing
hacer
it.
es elevar la
The only
calidad de la
way
tierra
that I could
para
do was
hacer el
elevate
piso.
the
Y siempre
amount
se
of
relaciona que la
soil,
gente, los espectadores ven y dice, ah, igual te
and
terreno.
then
Yo
people can
me
see.
estaba era reaccionando a un espacio porque para mí no existe el lienzo el blanco y tampoco existe el espacio.
For me, it's
¿Sí?
about
El
the
vacío.
space.
El
There's no
vacío
empty
es el
space.
elemento si yo lo que hago
Space
es
has a lot of
responder al
elements,
espacio.
and what I do is
Cuando
I
yo hice
react to
Moradas,
the
por
space.
ejemplo, la
And when I did
investigación fue
Moradas, the
relacionada
image that you're seeing
esas
right now,
exposiciones en
it's
Bogotá,
a
que es subterráneo,
exposition room in
y
Bogotá
encima
that it's
está el
underground.
patriarcado.
On top of that, there is a
Entonces yo
market.
dije, esto estamos
And I
debajo
said,
tierra y lo que
we
quiero es
are under
mostrar
the
que
earth.
estamos
And what
en
I
ese
want to
espacio subterráneo.
convey is that we are under the earth.
Estamos separados espacialmente de cuando subimos
Humans,
y bajamos,
we are very
dependiendo
separated
de
when we go
nuestra
up or
posición.
when we go
En
down.
Buenos Aires,
For
nuestra
example, my
posición y cómo
exposition in
estábamos
Buenos Aires,
era
Argentina,
el segundo
we were
superior,
using
estábamos 10 metros
the
por debajo de la
location
tierra y todo
and we
eso
were
por
10
dentro.
meters
Vas por la
below
tierra y
earth
no estás
and we go down
sintiendo este
in the
movimiento porque es
stairs
en
or the
todas las
elevator, and you
profundidades
don't
de la tierra.
understand that you're
Entonces, para
actually
mí es
going
una
in the
cultura
depth
que es
of
un
the air.
espacio sagrado.
And for many
Los
cultures, it's a sacred
las
space.
culturas ancestrales,
And
entonces la
our
gente llevaba
ancestors,
sus
they
ofrendas
would
a
go
la
to the
madre tierra.
cave, they
Entonces
do
yo
their
decía,
offerings to Mother
llenar
Earth.
estos
And
espacios
that's the reason
subterráneos
why
que
I take
nosotros
advantage of
logramos
this
por gracia de la madre
underground
tierra poder
areas,
hacer mi trabajo allí.
because Mother Earth
Entonces,
gives them to me, and I'm able to
hoy
do
en
my
día
job in
me
there. And it's almost like
agradezco
giving an
porque estoy en un
offering
espacio
to Mother Earth
subterráneo, eso no
because
solo un
it's
espacio
a
subterráneo. He trabajado en 3 espacios
it's a
subterráneos.
space that
El
is like
primero fue este, Moradas, después en Buenos Aires,
the one that I did was
y
Moradas in
después
Buenos
me
Aires.
fui a
These are sacred
y
spaces.
hice
I did another one
el
in
oscuro de
Paris.
abajo, que es
It's
también
called El
ver
Oscuro de Abajo.
palpable, ese
And
estar en
it's
ese
also
espacio
showing how to
en
be
el
in that
vientre de la
space
madre tierra,
that
donde
is almost like the uterus of the
todo
earth,
se origina, porque la
where
feminidad
everything gets created because of the
germina en la
seeds. They
oscuridad,
seeds, they
en la
grow
humedad,
in that
en la
darkness, in that
calidez del
humidity,
interior
and
de
that
la tierra.
warmth of the inside of the
Que
earth.
también, como algo que dijiste,
And
antes era una
something that you
teoría
said
real,
before
también
too
porque
is that
de
you
esa
want
forma que
the
tendréis la
audience to
experiencia de poder
remember or have
tener
experiences
en
of
cuenta tu
memories
trabajo, pero
when they
la
encounter
forma
your
o
job.
ilustrar es como
But
distinguir
basically, when I
cómo
hear you
proyectas
talk, it's almost like
qué obra se hace
your
alrededor de la
work
memoria de la tierra. La
becomes
tierra
a
estaba
memory
ahí,
of the
pero
earth,
fue hecha
that the earth was
de una
there
forma
and it was
artificial y
done in a
ahora
more
tu obra
industrial
hace,
structure. But now your
hace
art
entrar en la
is
memoria de la
allowing
tierra,
us to
¿no?
go
Y me
inside of
parece
Earth's memory.
este concepto tan
And it
individual
gives us
de
this
nosotros
individual concept that we all have
cómo nos
about
configuramos con la tierra.
how we
Em,
mix up
Te
with
tenía
Earth.
una pregunta
I
también
have a question
sobre
as well
cerámica.
of
Es muy
ceramic.
interesante. Yo sé que la
It's something very
cerámica,
interesting.
la
I
tierra,
know that the soil,
obviamente es muy importante para ti, pero que la
I know
tierra
soil is very
es
important
específica,
for
o
you.
sea,
but where the soil comes from is also very important for you, and then very important for your art. In Sierra Terrenal, I know that that one came from Hudson, from the outskirts of Hudson, New York, around Yapiquin, and also from Colombia. And then there's also an issue. You cannot bring the soil without baking it into the United States from another country. So when I was thinking about this, I think it's an irony, it's a big irony, that the baked soil is actually found in all the storages of paint, in all the Spaniard stories, especially in the stories of South America, as a symbol of the colonizing eras. But then you are telling us you had to bake the soil to bring it into New York. And this was also a job that you did with the Indian communities out in the forest. And also that the geographical location is very important, is something that exists in specific places that has specific local characteristics and also universal characteristics. It is so important where the soil is coming from, as well as the wine. It has a specific origin. Maybe wine that comes from one mountain is different from another mountain, and that you have to specify in the bottle from which geographical area within the mountain it's coming from. It's the same thing with the soil. The place where we were born, what kind of climate we grew up into, what kind of air we were breathing, what kind of water we were drinking, and everything adds up, and it's going to be bringing into the equation everything that we are. So to bring dirt and soil from the Amazonian areas, it's like bringing that magical place where nature is being understood by the communities around it. Because in order to be able to survive in those areas, it's very, very difficult. And in any moment, you can be in the verge of death. There is so many challenges and dangers, and you have to be in communication, and you have to be aware, and you just have to be in a state of meditation almost, because you cannot be thinking about something else, but to be present. Dangers are everywhere. And to bring ceramic from that geographical location was very important. The way of elaborating ceramic is it's almost like a technique from another time. It's something that's happening there, especially because of the black color that ceramic had or has. It's coming from vegetables. From other parts of the world that I've seen ceramic, it's by chemicals. But in that other place, it's coming from the plants themselves, from the Amazonian areas. And there's so many plants and animals, it's unimaginable. So that plant was just there. It's been there the whole time. To be able to put that ceramic or that clay into a dark black color, and to bring that knowledge into a very subtle way in that shape of ceramic or clay. And can you talk to us about the dirt that came from Dickens? So the dirt from Dickens has a different temperature. There's seasons, and that's in its memory when you touch it. You know, dirt in Colombia, it's warmer, and this other dirt is very cold. And for me to work with cold dirt, is something that my hands did not understand. The way that I communicate with soil is, or dirt, is I touch the texture, I feel the temperature, and it's very different. There is a warmth, it's almost like a heat uh, um, that comes from beacon. It's like a warmth.
Estamos mirando ahora alguno de tus
We're
dibujos
actually looking at
no
one
sé
of
si me
your
puedes decir
drawings right now that are very interesting for me. Because I think in your art there is a sensitivity, a graphic sensitivity that's very present in the way that you organize your art and how you um, place everything within your art. I know that you used to paint before doing sculptures and that you were working with matter and surface, and you've also it, you've also worked a lot with the engineering, and I'm so sorry, it's very noisy here in my studio. But you've actually talked about the engineering of el abrazo and how the surface on the top, it makes me remember of like the painting that you were doing a rectangle and something that's neutral, in which you can do any image that you want, any metaphor that you want. However, in your art, you still have the structure in a way that you align it in a way, and also how you have your metaphors, your allegories, and you're able to see the sensitivity in your drawings as well.
Y también creo que en pensar, por ejemplo, en la tierra que
I can also
forma
think
el
about the
piso
dirt that
el
forms
terrenal,
the
que es, me han dicho, me
the
parece
floor
un día que
in Cerro
es
Terrenal,
tierra mezclada con, no, no
and
sé,
you've said
pintura
that
con
is
piso, algo
actually
me,
dirt
realmente lo
mixed up with
¿no?
paint,
En el piso
maybe an acrylic, that you actually painted the floor and the
sobre los
walls.
dibujos
And I also wanted to ask about the drawings
tu sensibilidad abstracta,
and
cómo
how
esta
you have a sensitivity to the abstract
entra en tu pensamiento
and how it
y
goes
el
into
trabajo.
your thought process and
Y
into
fíjate
your
que cuando estaba
artistic
viendo estos
goals.
dibujos,
Yeah, when I was looking at these drawings, this is
es
exactly
ese
how
tejido.
it looks on the inside
Y como
of
muy bien
the
te das
abrazo.
cuenta, siempre hay
Uh,
la
that's how
palabra
it's knit
siempre está
together.
en mi trabajo.
And
Inicialmente
the painting aspect of
me
things
empecé
are
a
always
sentir
there in
muchísimo
my
y también
art.
como instaladora y como escultora
So
siempre me mantengo creando.
as
Sí,
the,
es
someone
mi
that does
particularidad
installation and
realizar
sculpture,
como
I'm still always painting.
lenguaje,
And it's very important
darme
for
dar
me
cuenta de esto, hacer
to know that
entenderlo
all of
para
this
después
needed to be
como
understood.
seguir cultivando esta particularidad
And I can
mía
continue
porque como
cultivating this
hago
special thing about
figuras y mis
myself and
instalaciones
how I do my
que soy un
sculptures
pintor.
and the installations
Ahora
from the
estoy
point of view of a
ahora estoy
painter.
haciendo un trabajo en la Fundación Pulitzer, por eso estoy
I'm
aquí
also
en
working
Missouri
in
haciendo este
the
proyecto
Pulitzer
y
Foundation. That's why
estoy
I'm here in
dejando
Missouri working in
huellas
this project.
y me
And I
siento
am working as
en el
well,
vacío porque estoy pintando estas rejas y es como si estuviera pintando en el vacío. Y
I'm working as
esta
well
es
with
como la
bars
diferencia.
or railings, and it
Sé
makes you
que
feel
soy
almost like in an empty
totalmente
space.
pintora en mi
And the
trabajo
difference in
porque
between being a painter and a
cuando
sculptor in my
trabajo
job,
sobre el papel
when I
o
work
diario
over paper
estoy
or
trabajando
any other
sobre un
material,
motor.
I'm actually
Aquí
working over
estoy
something that I can
como
support
intuidora
myself
porque
on.
soy pintor,
But
pero
as a
apoyo
sculpturer,
en el soporte
as far
el
as what is
material
my
sobre el cual
support,
estoy
because I'm
trabajando.
always
Ese
thinking about that, even as a painter.
espacio
That
está
in itself is the space, and that
tiene
space
una
has walls
dimensión,
and it has dimensions,
tiene una luz,
it has
tiene una
light, it
particularidad
has several
como
things that have,
temperatura,
you know,
si está
particular
súper llama o
aspects
no está
like
súper raro,
temperature. Is
el
it
color
underground
que
or
le
not?
pongo sobre
Is it
en
in
la
the height or not?
presentación, el techo, el
Is
material
it
del
about the
piso,
material that's
todo
in the
ello
roof, the
soporta
material that's
mi
in the floor?
escultura.
That is what
Entonces
supports my
siempre no
sculpture.
hay un espacio blanco
there's not a white space. I always work by reading those particular aspects of the environment of the area. And that happened when I actually work on the location to have a dialogue with the location in the space. Now I have another question. We're going to change directions just a little bit because I want to be able to talk about magic and the alchemism. I think is something very important for me. And your teacher, Isaías Roman, and I wanted to know a little bit more of this, and how you think about art and how art goes in areas such as healing, magic, maybe this relations or relationships that are less rational or ones that we talk about in historical art. Yes, so I've always said that every artist, it's a magician and it's a witch. For me, to do art is magic. We are magicians and we're witches. Even though we don't think about it, we are actually doing magic. I consider myself almost like a witch on top of the pot. I'm always mixing stuff that artists don't actually mix. For example, this one is one of the painting, water paintings, and paint water paintings in a way that other artists wouldn't do it. They're not so abstract. And I like to actually mix different modalities of art. It's almost like making a mixing pot, and I'm actually doing sculpture and painting and knitting things together, and it's all of this mix that the witches would do. I continue doing it in a literal way. When I've actually mixing anything that has to do with the grass or the cinnamon or the element that it pastes things together. It's a way or how a witch would do it, and to actually find ourselves close to the magic that we have as women. And because we have as women this mentality of being caregiver. I know men are cooking a lot more now, but most of the time we were in the kitchen, we were working with whatever little we found and doing wonderful things. So this is something that has influenced my work as an artist and as a woman and as a witch and as a magician. It is very interesting because when you go into the exhibition, it would be almost like a bakery because you can smell the cinnamon, you can smell the coffee. Um, but something that it's very interesting and caught my attention about your art is the way that you talk about humidity and the importance of humidity on the earth or on the soil. And when I got there, everything has dried up a lot. I don't have that same experience of humidity, but I have that experience of that earth that has dried up, but it still has this aroma, this smell. I was thinking about this and your interest in alchemy, and you can say that there is almost like a verbal alchemy. And there is actually in El Abrazo,
Estas obras ya secas, esta tierra negra que
and
se
there
ha
is the homophonous
preparado, o sea,
aspect, almost like this dry soil, or what would happen in
o sea,
fires, and it would be
en
similar
las
of
materias
how,
o qué
food
para
gets
incursionar
prepared
en esto
after it's taken
y
from the
si es
earth
algo que estabas
and it's
pensando.
preparing it, to be eaten. Is
Eso
this
tiene que ver
something that you were
muchísimo
thinking
porque
about
yo
when
he
you were doing
hablado
this? It
desde
does have
Isaías
something to
Román, que
do.
fue mi maestro
When you've talked about Isaías
de,
Roman, which was my teacher,
de la magia de la Amazonía,
from
él
the
me
Amazonian
contaba de
magic,
cómo ellos
he
cultivan
would tell me
y ellos
about how they
tienen un
will
pequeño fragmento
crop
de
or
tierra
cultivate and how they have a
y
small space
ese fragmento
of
de tierra
land,
tiene muchos
and
árboles y
this
ellos
has
talan los
so many
árboles y los
trees.
queman.
They would cut the
Ese
trees,
fragmento de
burn the
tierra se
trees,
llama chagra
and this
y ellos queman la
space
chagra
of
y yo
land
estuve en una
is called
quema
tagra.
de un
And I
chagra
was there in
y
one of those
para
fires,
mí era peligroso
tagra
porque eran
fires,
llamas que llegaban a los 20 metros y
because
lo que
it
estaba
was very,
haciendo
well, it was very
la
dangerous because it
quema
would
de la
go
chagra
20-meter
había una
ups.
mujer y su hija,
And the
mamá
people
y
that were
hija,
actually
las que lo
doing
quemaban,
the fires
era
of the chagra,
como
it
yo le
was
dije
mother
que
and
ella
daughter.
era porque ella
Um,
estaba
her
rezando
name was
a
Mama
Yahweh
Chacha. And I
al
also saw it
viento
like
para
almost
que
like witchcraft,
solamente se quemara
um,
una parte
because
que era la
they
cabeza,
were
querían que era un
just
círculo y yo
working
siguiera avanzando
on things
el
burning
fuego hacia
only
la selva
inside of a
y que
circle and not to
nosotros no nos
forward
pasaba,
for
no nos
for the
pasara
rest of the
nada.
forest or into the rest of the
Entonces,
forest,
como
and
todavía
for
había
nothing to
flamas,
happen to
imagínate,
us or
ella
anyone else.
oraba y
And
rezaba
this
y
woman
seguía
would
avanzando y el
sing
fuego la
and would
escuchaba
dance, and it
y
was
después
almost like
estaba
fire
todo
could listen to
quemado,
her,
todo negro.
and everything
Era algo,
was
como yo le
burnt and
explicaba,
completely
la
black.
vida
It
alimenta
was
la muerte y la muerte alimenta la
life
vida.
gives food
Estos árboles
to death, death gives food
quemándose
to
iban a
life.
alimentar
And these
después
trees
a
that were
las
burning
personas
up
y a los
were going to
animales que
feed
iban
people,
a
feed the
recibir el
animals
fruto
that were going
de
to
estos
receive the
cultivos que
fruits
iban a estar ahí
of these
en la
crops
chagra.
that were going to
Eso
be
es lo
there
más
in the
mágico
chagra,
para mí que fuera negro
this
y
piece
que
of land.
estuve
And it
en
was
ese
very important for it to be
no
black, and
sacamos
that I was able to
nada que fue
be
la quema de la chagra, que para
in
mí
in
fue un
this
privilegio, pero para
situation in
muchos de
which
la
I could
vida
see the
cotidiana,
fires of the chagra.
ellos
And to me, it
celebran
was so
porque
magical.
somos
For them,
muy
it's a
orgullosos.
daily.
Ellos saben
And
cómo
I know
nosotros
that
nos
this
organizamos. De
elements
hecho,
may
nunca estas
go out of
personas
our
que no
control, but
fueron
they know
parte
how
de
to
la
control
biodiversidad
them,
de la
and
selva
that they
siempre
were
van
not
a estar
hurting
allí
the forest. They were
compartiendo
always
relaciones.
there.
De hecho, este tipo de
And they've
cultivos
been
lo que
doing
hacen
this
es llevar semillas
this
de
type
un
of
lugar a otro
cultivating this
y
type of
de estos
crops for many
frutos
years.
se alimentan los diferentes animales de la selva porque
And you can see
están
how different
los
animals
animales que
of the
se
forest
comen
would eat
los
from this
productos de esta chagra,
as
no
they go
solo
through there.
para los humanos,
And this product is
sino
not just
también
for
para
humans, but also for the
la
animals
biodiversidad de
and
la
for the
selva seguir
biodiversity that exists
manteniendo.
and that continues to exist.
Es importante, creo que
It's
también
very
tocar
important
el control, ¿no?
to talk
Porque la
about
palabra aquí
in
es muy
control,
informal,
and
¿no?
there is a lot of
Arreglar
control as well.
cada pedacito
You have talked
del
about
terreno
fixing
en el
every single
abrazo.
little piece of
Ahora
hay
mismo veo
in
el cielo
the
terreno,
abrazo, and in the cielo
todo está
terrenal,
en pilas
everything
separadas.
is
Me
actually
parece
located in
casi
different pools,
aterrador.
almost in
Almacén para el futuro, no
like
sé,
a
seguro que a
place where
todos
you
nos
were storing
espera
things for the future,
si nos preparamos
the
bien.
future that awaits for us if
Quería
we don't prepare
preguntarte
ahead,
sobre
right?
este control y sobre la
I wanted to ask
posición
you about this type of
y la
control
manera de
in the
arreglar
position, in the way in
los
which you
materiales.
were fixing all the materials and all the shapes that you
Fíjate
utilized.
que como estoy, te voy a contestar primero el cielo terrenal.
First, I will
Todo
answer about
depende del
cielo
clima, porque
terrenal.
la primera las
All things
vertientes.
were
Esta me
located
gustan las
specifically
fuego moradas. Y
because
te acuerdas que te
of
dije
what I
que
did
morada
previous
es
to that,
color
which was
sólido y
moradas.
que arriba había una plaza de mercado.
Like I
Lo
said,
que tú
it was
hacías a
underground.
una
There was a
feria
market in the
en
top. If you've ever gone to a marketplace
Latinoamérica,
in Latin America,
que yo creo que aquí en los subcontinentes
or
también hay,
maybe
pero
here
en
as well,
Latinoamérica son muy
marketplaces here.
pioneros de cómo
But in Latin
estás
America,
empezando a
the
organizar los
marketplaces
productos y hacer
organize
cosas
products
maravillosas y
very
hacen como
neatly,
unos
and they do
vestidos
beautiful
súper
towers and they do
lindos. Entonces,
knittings.
como
And
yo empecé a apilar
I
en las
actually
plazas del
started
mercado y
putting
pues
things
un
like that,
historiador de arte
using as a
decía, no,
reference the
estos artistas que
marketplaces.
lo han hecho,
And I'm thinking about other artists that have done it, and I was thinking about or the Latin American market. I come from very different places. And in the abrazo, it is different. The sensation that you get when you actually go to a landscape, everything comes together. But we are used to living in geometrical spaces. So I wanted us to feel like we were going inside of a home, that there is this geometrical environment, not how it looks outside in a landscape, something that will actually, something that you be able to use to walk through and understand that Earth is your home. And I'm relating these two things. And for you to understand in a sensory way or understand it in a different way. You've talked a lot in this conversation and in other conversations about circular time. And one of the most impressive things about this is to be able to be there and also feel um, of the Mori element was inverted. Instead of looking at art as in depth as final, we were using art as a way to talk about a life that changes, energy that changes in shape and form but doesn't end. And this cannot be said or talked about without talking about the ecological disaster that we're living and that we are in a very important moment of crisis on the earth and ecological changes that we're seeing. And we actually wanted to ask, are you thinking about the climate? Are you thinking about the power of art? Not to make these changes, but in helping us to understand where do we live in a deeper, much deeper way. And yes, you said it right, and even in a more loving way, because Earth is hugging you, right? And in that moment, you're going to realize that. And when you feel the hug and that you feel like you're going to be part of the earth and you're going to take care of earth even more. That's why it's so important to understand the relationship that we all have with earth and with dirt. There is a Buddhist, there is a Buddhist entity that says there's no separation between the inside and the outside. Um, I form part of this. I am part of this. There is a deep relationship. It's not just take care of the earth, it's take care of yourself. That's the difference.
Pues, Delcy, muchísimas gracias y creo que con ese comentario
Thank you so much, Delcy. And with that beautiful comment, I think that's where we need to end this part, this formal part of the conversation, and open it to the different questions they may have.
Muchísimas gracias, Delcy.
Thank you so much, Delcy. Thank you, Gaby.
Muchísimas gracias, Delcy, Gaby.
Thank you so much, Delcy and Gaby. A great, great, great conversation. Incredible. Thank you.
Y si tenemos algunas preguntas
And then if we have some questions from the
para
public,
empezar,
first of
quiero
all, I
preguntarles,
want to ask a
pregunta a
question
Delcy.
for Delcy.
Mi pregunta
So my question for Delcy
sobre,
is
la primera vez
about the first time
usa,
that
la
you
material de la tierra.
actually used the dirt material.
¿Cómo se sentise emocionalmente y
How did you
físicamente
feel
usar la
emotionally
tierra
and physically
la primera vez?
to use the earth for the first time? I do remember. I do remember very well. I've actually found out that working with dirt And it's not just happening to me, but also to the assistants that work with me, the volunteers, because we all used to play with dirt when we were kids. And after we are adults, we just don't, unless you work with clay or sculpture. But generally, we do this when we were kids, all of us, right? It was almost like going back to my childhood. It's like my little girl was really happy playing with the dirt again. And that's how many of my assistants or volunteers will start remembering and how they were in the dirt, they were playing out in the landfill, in the back of their homes. So in Venice, when I was working in the Biennale, there was volunteers from all parts of the world. You know, there's immigrants from all parts of the world, and there was a lot of people from Ukraine, or Ukraine, and they requested to work in this because they would feel like at home. It was not their home, but it was dirt. And it would remind them about how they lived, the people from Africa that were there too. And they were just throwing soil and dirt everywhere because that's how they created their homes in Africa. And the person from Ukraine said to me, well, I wanted to work because I saw you walking on top of the soil, you know, barefooted. And that's how I used to walk in Ukraine. And so dirt, soil is something that is in within us. And then when we touch it, we feel it, we go back to those happy moments that we've lived. And that's how I've always been happy with touching earth.
Muchas gracias, Delcy. Y ahora tenemos otras preguntas.
Okay, tenemos, we have other questions, and Chloe is actually going to read them.
En el canal de inglés y tenemos las interpretaciones en español.
The next question is from Jeremy. Jeremy wonders, I know you mentioned that the dirt has completely dried out, but I found it much more moist than traditional adobe mud, clay, and straw would be. How do you manage to keep the dirt so moist and humid for the duration of the installations?
Bueno, la tierra se mantiene húmeda porque
Well, the dirt maintains the humidity because there is humidity in the environment and it absorbs it. The soil is like a sponge that absorbs the humidity that's in the earth. We don't give it to her, but we don't do that, but they do. The soil does.
Thank you, Delcy. Thank you, Jeremy, for that question. The next question is going to be from Livia. Livia wondered, or actually the next question is going to be from Millicent. Millicent asks, does the geometrical arrangement of, for example, cielo terrenal reference a place?
no, he dicho antes la pregunta.
No, that question I've answered before. It has to do a lot with how the elements are organized in the market, where they sell fruits in Latin America, in Mexico, Colombia. I've seen amazing things, and I see that people wants to showcase their products in a beautiful way, and I feel like they also love them. And I feel like if you're selling papayas, you love papayas and you try to display them in a way that they look juicy and that will appeal other people to buy it. I have placed these elements that could be very cold in a very warm way so they can transmit harmony. And if you can find it, you can make it anywhere, and you can make something beautiful with it.
Thank you, Delcy. Thank you for that question, Millicent. The next question is from Amber. Is scent always a part of your sculptures? can you talk more about the scents? Is there something specific about cinnamon and clove that made you want to include them?
Sí, uso mucho la canela porque como
Yes, I use cinnamon a lot because I am in underground levels. If I'm working with soil and I'm working with water, mushrooms are going to show up. And canela is an antifungal, a natural antifungal to prevent that from growing. It's going to prevent that. So that will not show up in places that I don't want it to show up because there are some other pieces of work or books nearby. And also cinnamon reminds us of the food, and I wanted there to be a close relationship between the smell of the food and the soil, because really we eat soil, but we just don't realize it.
Gracias, Delcy. Y pienso que tenemos
We have one
Thank
more
you,
question.
Delcy.
sí, uno más.
And I think we have one more.
Delcy, you spoke a little bit about the difficulty of gravity to your projects. And I was wondering if, as much as a challenge, do you think of gravity as a tool or a material that you're working with, like light and soil and the senses and the spaces? Because when I saw El Abrazo, I thought about the fact that it's floating, which is such an amazing part of the sculpture, the fact that the ground is not there beneath its feet. And so I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about that.
sí, para mí,
Yes, for me, like for everyone that has had a difficult life, difficulties are opportunities for growth and to do things that otherwise we wouldn't have want to do them. I think of elevating the soil because it happened to me that in Venecia, the people started to kick the work. And I also wanted to avoid that. I want the viewer to feel that he was in front of something sacred. That's why I elevated from the front, from the floor. I feel like with the soil, we can do anything. We can exploit it, we can step on it, we can damage it, we can contaminate it, because like I said before a few times, we feel disconnected from the earth. For me, that was the reason why it was important to elevate it. But there's always people willing to do impossible things. And I also wanted to give that opportunity to those engineers that do amazing things through their art, because engineering is also wonderful art. And that forms part of Earth and the work, that possibility of lifting it. And gravity is also important and is an important part of this project because we have always been working with it.
Muchas gracias, Delcy.
Thank you, Delcy.
Gracias a Delcy por las
Thank you for the
súper
questions.
diversas y
Thank you, Delcy, for your answers. Very
gracias a
interesting.
Gaby
Also,
por sus
thank you to
preguntas.
Gabby for her questions.
Sí, gracias también a Nico y
Thank
el
you
equipo
to
de la
Nico
Galería
and the whole
Marian
team
Goodman
of
por su
the gallery
por
Marian Goodman
ilustrarla traducción
for
para hoy. Y también les
for
quería
supporting
agradecer a
this
Hannah
preparation
y
of
el
this
equipo
event.
de
Also,
DHLC por
Hannah
su
and
apoyo
the team of
en la
DHLC for their
preparación
studio
para el evento de hoy.
and for the preparation
También
for
nos
today's
gustaría
event.
agradecer a la Terra
We will
Foundation
also
of
would like to
American
thank
Art por
Terra Foundation
patrocinar
of American
el
Art
programa y por
to
apoyar
support
nuestro
this
archivo.
program.
Pueden explorar el archivo en YouTube.
You all
Y
can
la
enjoy this
Fundación
archive
Brooklyn Rail apoya nuestras
and also
investigaciones,
donate
el
to
personal de
Brooklyn Rail.
producción y operaciones. Hay una link en la charla para donar.
We're We're going to put a link on the conversation for donation, and come back with us on Monday for a conversation with Andy Goldman.
For what I am becoming at Charles Moffat Gallery in Nueva York. Mil gracias una vez más para Delcy.
Thank you so much,
Gaby, por la
Delcy
conversación de hoy.
and Gaby, for the
Increíble.
conversation today.
Gracias a todos para
Thank you, everyone, for
Ahora
being
pueden
here.
abrir los micrófonos para
And
decir
now
adiós.
the microphones are
Gracias
open,
a
so you
todos,
can
and
say hi and
open
goodbye.
microphones for everyone to say hello and goodbye as you leave today. Thank
You
you.
guys can open your microphones to say hi and goodbye.
Thank you.
Gracias a todos. Gracias, Gaby.
Thank you,
Gaby.
gracias, Delcy.
Gracias.
Thank you, Gaby.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Thanks,
Chao.
Chelsea.
Gracias.
Thank you so much, Gabby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias a
Gracias.
todos.
Congratulations, Delcy.